Now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Writer's Block. Happy to have you this Thursday. We have. Oh, I should probably mute my Twitch so you guys don't hear me infinitely going into the corridor. We have some amazing guests with us this week, and we will have amazing guests next week too. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Aaron, why don't you go first?
Thank you. My name's Aaron Voigt. I go by Aaron SXL on Twitter. I'm a writer and a tabletop enthusiast. But I'm glad to be here.
Happy to have you, man. Mark?
Yeah, man.
My name's Mark. I'm with Gamers Ledge. We are a media company whose basic goal is to help people wisely spend their discretionary income. We've been doing that since 1997, which means I'm old, especially on the internet. And yeah, I mean, we basically stream all the stuff we recommend people to do: TTRPGs, video games. You'll see a lot of Fortnite stuff on my thing because I'm sorry, Fortnite's great, but also been a DM for the last 30 years and love creating new worlds, doing shared collaborative storytelling, which I think is what everybody in TTRPG space likes to do.
Absolutely.
Right where we live, man. Right where we live.
Okay, Omni, introduce yourself again, because we can't get enough of you.
Oh my god, don't feed my ego that much, man. It's just gonna make my head swell, and it's already got a big enough thing going on. Hey everyone, I am the last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and the creator of the Legacy tabletop role-playing game. And I am here co-hosting with my man, VA Redemption, the chillest dude I know, and really just generally having a fun time doing what I like doing, building worlds.
Hell yeah. So, folks, if you tuned in for the first episode, which I forgot to VOD because I'm a dummy, the first episode, Omni and I each provided 3 words, and we went from there for the first hour. We sort of built upon those words. We went word by word and put little story beats, broad strokes. Now that we're having guests on, we'll actually be able to make finer, more detailed strokes, as it were. So each of us have 3 words. And we are more than happy to show you them. Let's start with our guests. Let's start with Mark. What is your first word?
My first word is pain.
Pain? Okay.
Ooh, starting off strong.
Well, I mean, that's a good word. Pain is a very broad topic, so that's definitely going to inspire a lot of different thinking. I don't think that's the word you were talking about when you meant specific, is it?
No, that's my third word.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to that then. Aaron, what's your first word?
Diagonal.
Diagonal. That's an interesting one. Is it bad? The first thing I thought of was H.P. Lovecraft. Okay. Omni, what's your first word?
Dust.
Dust?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're Thousand Sunsing it, I guess.
All is.
We make a lot of Warhammer references. I'm sorry in advance.
That's all right.
My first word is a little derivative of something I'm already doing. Coveted.
Like that. Good one.
Producer roles are very coveted.
Now we have to do everything.
Oh my god.
R.I.P.
We'll just go in a circle until we have all of our words.
Okay.
So go ahead, Mark.
Hope.
Hope. I like that one. Aaron?
Large.
Large. Omni?
Stars.
Stars. Oh, not starts. Stars. There we go.
Stars.
My second word is arduous.
My third word is depth of flaws,
Depth of flaw.
which is cheating because it's not one word, but
That's
I
okay.
couldn't figure out how to say that concept in one word.
Omni's very first
Concept,
episode,
yeah.
he cheated.
Yeah. I literally threw stellar cartography in there, casually sliding it in. So you're good.
Aaron, what's your final word, man?
Record.
Record. I
Or
like
record,
that.
depending on how you pronounce it.
English is a fantastic language. I was about to say a cuss word.
This is a PG-13 stream.
I can only say one F word. That's what we've agreed on in the stream. So.
Sounds good. We'll keep a note.
Omni, go ahead.
All right. Fury is my third one.
Fury. Okay. And funnily enough, my last word is foremost. So,
Nice.
okay. So from here, we have this lovely selection of words that have things in common, surprisingly enough. We have pain and fury, for example. We have depth of flaws and arduous. You know, a bunch of different words here. So we're going to, we have 12 words, so that's a lot of words, right? So we're going to take 2 of our favorites from each of us. So we'll have a total of just 8 to work with, so we can sort of round out what we're working with. And on Chip Off the Block, I will be using the words, Omni and I will be using the words that we didn't get to on this episode, and we will do that. So, Mark, go ahead and pick your first word that you would like for us to use. It can be your own. I'm not gonna hold that against you.
Just because I'm interested to see how this works, diagonal.
I am too.
Okay.
I am really interested to see how we're going to incorporate diagonal. That's a good challenge word. Aaron, what's your word now?
I'm gonna reciprocate with Mark. I'm interested in seeing what depth of flaws turns out to be.
Diagonal depth of flaws. This is going to be interesting. Omni?
Out of all of that, I gotta say, I really like coveted. Like, there's
biased.
something about that that's gravitating towards me.
You're biased.
Just a little bit. I may or may not be on a stream which shares 2/3 of that root word, so yes.
I going to pick
Sorry.
my word. Oh no, you're good. What were you saying something?
No, I was making a joke. I said vetted.
Yes.
2/3 of the word.
That's the name of our game, vetted. I'm gonna pick dust.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, now we just go around in a circle. Go.
Hope,
Hope. Gotcha.
which is one of mine.
Star
That's-
Wars.
That's always a good one for stories.
Absolutely. Aaron?
I like arduous a lot.
I do too. So arduous will be one that we use. And Omni?
I'm torn right now. I'm gonna go with pain.
I'd like pain for 500, please.
Yeah. Alex Trebek just comes over and tases me into the carpet.
I didn't think it was that kind of stream, but okay.
It is now, everybody. It is now.
Here we go.
I'm going to pick record, because I really like that. Or record, either or. Technically, that could be 2 words. You could have picked that for 2 words.
That's the fun.
That is the fun of that. It's also the thing I hate the most about the English language. Just so many words that have the similar meanings. So, now that we have these words, that doesn't mean we have to incorporate all of them into, say, like, one big story. We're just going to sort of touch on these ideas, and you'll get brownie points if you are able to tie another theme into the theme we're currently talking about. So, let's start in order. I can't believe I'd ever be saying this on a show, but let's start with pain. So we'll put down
All
our
right.
ideas here. And you guys feel free to type, or if you'd like me to type for you, I can do that too. It's no big deal.
It's an open forum of world building. We are kind of just literally slapping it all together. So not to use the old adage, but there's no bad ideas.
Sure.
Okay, are we? Is there any context for what we're doing? You know, are we talking about NPCs? Are we talking about a place? Are we talking about a pantheon of gods? What's the?
That is
Your
entirely
choice.
up to you,
Yeah.
and your thought process. Share that with us so we can bounce ideas off of each other. Because pain's a very broad subject, so that could be somebody that's like maybe like a flagellant that flagellates themselves for penance and stuff like that. Or pain could be as simple as just like getting hit with a bullet. You know, like, well, what causes pain? Where does pain come from? Is pain emotional? Is it physical? That sort of
It could be
thing.
societal. This is a broad brush. So choose whatever focus you want, run with it. Literally, this world is such, right now, a bare bones canvas. You can throw a dart and basically hit open space to paint on.
I should sort of describe the world. It's a post-apocalyptic science fantasy. So we're low technology. So imagine the technology from the idea that we had, and this can change because why else would I have you guys on here to help me out? Technology is sort of like 100 years in the past of what we have now. So there's very primitive technology, but it's still pretty advanced considering this is not too long after an apocalyptic-esque event. And there's also, like I said, science fantasy. So it's low magic, but the people that do have the magic are very powerful figures. So do what you want with that. I mean, you could literally come up with an entirely new concept that we haven't even thought of, and I would be happy to hear it.
I'm wondering if we could kind of focus the discussion to what I found are like either the 4 basic survival needs or the 4 F's of evolution, which are the survival needs are like food, water, shelter, and clothing, or the 4 F's are fleeing, fighting, feeding, and reproduction.
I laughed when I started with an R.
I was sitting on that last one going like, let's see whether or not we're going to drop our F word
no,
for
I
this
wouldn't take
stream.
that honor away just yet. It's so early. Yeah, I think it is useful to start. I'm very interested in where we're trying to set the groundwork for this world, and I listened to a bit of both Chip Off the Block and the first stream, and it seems like there was a world at one point that could field armies, right? We talked a lot about these the untethered, which are like these, correct me if I'm wrong, but like magicians that have some sort of like that are tied to magic in some way, like you literally like umbilical cords. And there's like a nebula sort of deal with the magic.
Yeah, what we sort of touched on in the first episode was the idea that magic sort of retreated from the world, so to gain access to it, one of the most common ways is to become tethered to it, and whether that's something that just intrinsically happens when you're young, or you go through the magical equivalent of the Spartan 2 program and you're kind of forced into it. But to get power, you literally are tied into the celestial spheres. So you can tell who a mage is by literally looking at them, and especially in like the dark, you can see like a glowing thin line going up into the sky, and they channel power down in almost like a lightning rod for arcane might. But it's very unstable and dangerous. It isn't. We're not at like 5th ed D&D levels of, oh, I'm just gonna wash this plate with my magic. No, it's like, oh yeah, to become a mage, I accidentally disassociated myself partially from this timeline. So, like, just casually floating by, I may or may not age you 20 years. Sorry about that in advance.
Yes,
So,
I believe you used the touchstone of the movie Bright, the Will Smith film.
Which everyone in chat dragged me for.
Yes, deservedly so. But I think that under that framing of magic as very, very dangerous is useful, right? Especially if we are using such a physical, visual aspect. So I'm wondering what a society that like is literally like built around, essentially, if you're going to have a big, a nation of scavengers, they are probably going to want to defend their big nuke that literally like is coming out of the heavens. And I'm wondering what a society, that uses that, what are the pain points of that society? Like, what does a society look like that is trying to feed itself, but also make sure that, their big terrible nuke person is kept safe from not only other people but from the citizens of that society.
So what you're saying is like what pain is brought to the people that attempt to protect this thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, what are the things that, what do people have to give up in order to live in this kind of world?
Sure. That's actually a really good point. Because so far we've been talking about a lot of the things that have, like, we've been very broad strokes about the post-apocalyptic nature of the world and sort of hinting that there's a fair bit of dystopia to go around in it. But we never really hardened it up beyond the fact that some mages are definitely abducted as children and refined into living weapons with time, at least in one nation on this world, or one society. But really not much more than that.
Somebody made a point in chat. Centrifuge said, that's a good point of pain. A spell like clerical growth spells of crops would possibly require a cost. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Just like a simple spell like that. Mark?
I have a kind of building on what was said here.
Mm.
How long has magic been active again?
Magic, we sort of like I said, broad strokes. So feel free to change things. I'm gonna do a show
Yeah.
even later tonight where we like retcon shit. It's an adult show.
Sanding the block. That's what we'll call it. Sanding the block.
I'll be sanding the block. It's called World Breakers. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Magic we're on the very first frontier of magic. So like the society before maybe had some sort of fundamental understanding of magic, but now that they're gone, we have literally no previous knowledge of it. It's like a burning of the Library of Alexandria-esque event, to where nobody really knows how this stuff works, and it works significantly different anyway.
So
Within 100 years at most.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is just a brainstorm idea. Feel free to discard it. Kind of building on what Aaron said, I would think it would be interesting and practical for the people who understood magic before to have kind of created a conspiracy through which learning of technology is now painful to them, because that cements their importance in these societies as the focal PowerPoint, and why every tribe needs a magic user to keep their tribe safe.
That's a really good idea, actually. So
Yeah, disincentivizing knowledge of science is really, that's actually pretty smart.
Bouncing off of that idea, so what you're saying is perhaps because of the apocalyptic nature of this world, electrical currents don't work the same as they used to. So even attempting to sort of make something as, I say simple, but simple to us as like a microwave, that would cause like serious injury to people if they were attempting to harness electricity. And somehow, despite magic being very difficult, it might be a little bit easier to harness to some people.
Right. Because then that incentivizes people to keep magic users important, and burning, like you said, burning of the Library of Alexandria. Maybe that was the last-ditch effort of the previous society when they knew the end was coming, to disincentivize where they went wrong with technology and incentivize magic.
Oh, so what you're saying is they they almost like booby trap the technology of old before they went.
Right.
That's genius. I almost said the F word. I need to save that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Because honestly, like electricity really it's a logic system. It's a logic system underpinned in the laws of physics, but this is a world with magic, and where the magic is absurdly destructive. I could totally see some apocalyptic level mage or choir of mages just taking the laws of physics on a bench and going, okay, bonk, and just bending it enough to be like, okay, it's still intact, but the next people who want to do this are going to have to do a lot of learning, because even we don't know how it works anymore.
I just want to establish that it is now canon that an archmage or a quorum of mages said bonk to the laws of physics. Just making sure that's preserved for posterity when it is rediscovered by the players at some point.
I love the idea of somebody being like bonk, and you to play off the microwave analogy, instead of technology being like, oh, we can heat up some food in this box. It's like, you can heat up food, but you are also inside the box when it happens.
Yeah.
Well, we did
a microwave.
I mean, we did talk about like, and this is a thing I'll do occasionally, is I'll find another word that we used and sort of like pluck it and use it a little bit. Sort of tying that pain into it again. The idea that magic is designed to come with a cost, but now science comes with a cost as well. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe that's a way to stabilize access to science. Maybe science can be sort of renormalized, but doing so is basically the equivalent of blood magic. Or that might be a means of restabilizing it. You can't use the old rules unless you kind of pay for it.
It's like absolute reinvention. Like we have these ideas, but we have to come up with new and different formulas to achieve them. That is
all ties back to pain.
All back to pain. There's pain to get these things. And the pain could also come from trying to scavenge into these old and dangerous cities, trying to recover this stuff. Oh,
absolutely, yeah.
Good points, guys. Good points. Holy shit.
Not to mention, it ties so naturally into the magic system, too. Like, we have mentioned over and over that mages are the walking equivalent of First Strike. obliterating weapons for these societies, but it is not an easily acquired power. And I guarantee you there's no mage in this setting that has not undergone a significant amount of pain of some form or other to become basically a walking weapon at this point.
I think that's
Gemma
good for
Ha-
pain. I really do.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say Gemma Hale in chat has some really interesting comments about that being able to influence neurological pathways or biological changes as well.
Neurological
If you-
systems on Earth totally rely on electrical pulses. Not the right word, but the
Yeah, Neris and Gemma are both actually really, they're both in STEM. And so
qualified.
whenever
Yeah,
they
I was gonna
speak in
say.
chat, I'm like, my eyes immediately go like, oh, crap, they're talking. So
Science.
I love that. The science!
We have kind of a big empty going on, like a Fallout New Vegas big empty kind of vibe going on with tech right now. Like, I dig that a lot, though. Just, oh, man. I think that's a good point for pain. Wow, that's
Yeah.
a weird sentence. Context. This is the one that I think is gonna be difficult, and I appreciate you bringing a difficult word. Diagonal. What the hell do we do with that? Any ideas immediately jumping out at us, guys?
I have one, but it's sort of okay. This is where I get to flex my my gaming nerd. So, all right. Those of you who are familiar with Destiny 2, you've probably heard the term sword logic before. And the idea is that in a specific plane of existence, in a world controlled by the whims of someone, the idea that underlies their basic nature changes reality. And so for an entire group, of the Hive is what they're called, they have this logic called the sword logic, where everything is sharpened down to teeth, where basically all aspects of reality come down to it is contest. Whoever wins was right to win, will become stronger by winning, and it is right that they do so. So, like, everything in that to do with the Hive is basically, okay, can you kill me before I kill you? And if I do so, I will gain power over you, or power that you had. So I like the idea of a logic system. Maybe that's where a diagonal comes in. We don't have the same logic system we had before for science or even magic. It's now diagonal logic. We have to relearn the way things work. It's no longer point A to point B is a straight line. Point A to point B has to be crossed diagonally.
So you're
It
thinking
has to be
about
done
this.
weirdly.
You're thinking about this on like a sort of like, for example, let me paint a little picture. So we have an idea, and then there's like a straight line to achieving said idea, specifically with technology. Let's say we're making our microwave like we were talking about, but there's a certain point at the process of making said microwave where we're just like, nope, can't go any further towards that straight line idea. We have to go diagonal, not quite around it, but diagonal and make an entirely new bit of technology. So something that would be like a microwave to us would be like what Aaron said. Well, you have to be in the box to operate said microwave. You have to. It's sort of literally in the sense of outside the box thinking or inside the box thinking in this particular regard.
Yeah, exactly. It's a way to describe the way that you have to approach problem solving from a scientific or magical standpoint. You have to think obliquely. You can't just go point A to point B easy. There will always be a hiccup. So that's my thought. Any other thoughts?
I'm wondering if we could use that like logic model metaphor and also tie in Gemma's idea of like, you know, electricity and messing up neurons. Like I wonder if like somehow you have to like there is some way in which magic users brains like the electricity like has to move diagonally in their brain somehow, like it's not along a straight like neural pathway in the normal musculoskeletal system. Like it moves in a weird way. Like and maybe that is how magic users like are able to access their magic from the sky. Like it's just their whatever they do to gain magic, it is so, you know, whatever technology or whatever, you know, tethering they use, it has to move diagonally. And like not only is that they're like their brains different, but also like the logic of the way that they're, you know, whatever biochemical thing happens, it is subverted through that.
So, what you're saying is, instead of this just being magical users, this could also be brought along the sort of point of we have this strange sort of established thing in just regular people, to where like the way our brains work can interact with technology to the point where we almost have to like plug ourselves in to said technology because of the way electrical waves work now, or currents work in this post-apocalyptic world. Mages could be, in a very similar sense, scientists, or somebody put it in funny words in the chat, magical cyborgs. Just sort of being able, your brain is like a computer, period, right? So having like a way to sort of plug yourself into the thing that you're interacting with, akin to tethers, that could be really interesting. That would be an interesting parallel between technology and magic.
So I also have one other tangent thought for this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
When I heard diagonal, the first thing I thought of is there's a very old role-playing game called Everway that was put out by Wizards of the Coast right after Magic the Gathering. And the way they did their character sheets was you had air, earth, fire, water, and you had lines that went across. Water automatically is the counter to fire. Air is the counter to earth.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe that could be something for Diagonal to use here as well, as it's no longer like that because things are all out of skew now. Maybe the opposing schools are diagonal instead of straight across. So earth is the counter to fire, air is the counter to water, etc., etc.
Huh.
Just like
so an
completely
upsetting of the
reinvented.
natural order in Magic.
Right.
Oh.
I
Turn
like that.
all of Pokemon on its head.
Exactly.
That rules.
Screw Pokemon, we're Magic players.
We're not playing Pokemon anymore. Fire up the Temtem, boys.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, you could even extrapolate that out to say that when someone tries to use fire magic, they may get earth consequences.
That's,
Oh.
that's
Rebellion. I
Yeah,
like that.
it's kind of, that's what I thought of as soon as I heard you say diagonal, because I equate everything back to RPGs that I've played throughout my experience, and that's I am no plagiarist, but I am no original thinker either. I am constantly being influenced by everything.
We're all
else
GMs
I've
and players and writers
Yeah.
here. Let's be real. We haven't had an original idea since Gilgamesh decided to befriend his best buddy who tried to beat his ass. Let's be real. It's fine.
We're not
It's
writers.
okay.
We're not writers. We're
Yes.
reinventors.
We're
that's what we do.
remixing. That's what it is.
We're
We've been
remixing.
remixing for thousands of years, and it works great. So I love that, though. That's actually a really cool idea. Especially since I kind of like that. Maybe it's literally intrinsic. Maybe that's the reason why Magic is the way that it is now. Why it's unstable. Because maybe in the prior world before everything went kablooey, maybe Magic was more like a traditional, like 5th ed D&D or Magic the Gathering style. All the magic is in neat little boxes. You have your colors of mana, or you have your elemental foundries of magic you can draw from. But then everything went... I feel like it's going to become a meme now, the great bonk of magic and physics. And ever since then, Magic just doesn't obey those rules anymore. You literally can't pigeonhole it into that position. You can't go Fire School or Earth School or Abjuration. Literally, the Magic refuses to work that way.
And it's funny because then it makes it tragic, because the bonk, they did it with the best of intentions, but then when everything went kablooey, they were dooming the human race to an existence they hadn't foreseen.
The bonk heard around the world.
That's right.
The road to bonk is paved with good intentions.
That's right.
We're gonna have to make a shirt or a mouse pad with bonk on it, and I'm all about this. I love this.
Oh man, writer's block. Not the show that we building words with, or worlds with words. It's just bonk like that. That's gonna be the tagline for the show.
Shout outs to Ty Artemis in the chat. Thank you for letting me know how to pronounce your name.
Yes, love you. Glad you could make it. By the way, I've also been as I've been seeing interesting concepts come up when I can. I've been going back through chat and saving the ideas that I spotted as comments on our page, so we can review it either in the future or on this stream. So if you're looking at the comments on the right, I have the name of the person who made the initial comment, and I also have the context of the comment for anyone to read.
Given time
also,
constraints, we will probably cover those on Wednesdays.
Yes.
Which I really appreciate you writing that stuff down. I just we have a lot of words to get through and a lot of.
Oh no, I
content.
agree 100%. Like, just letting folks in the chat know, really, we're seeing you, and we love what you guys are dunking in this. There's some great stuff. So
We've done like 7 words already, haven't we?
We've gotten pain and diagonal.
Oh.
Yeah. It goes surprisingly. It's because every one of these is a jumping off point. And so they'll get tangential, and that's the whole point of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're riffing. So
I was just teasing.
yeah.
The next word, diagonal is a difficult one, but I think Mark and Aaron both had some great points, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be completely real. I would have had no idea where the hell to go with that, so I appreciate it. This is why you have guests, because they look significantly smarter than you, but you're okay with it. And people in chat, you could also be a guest. Hit me up. So our next mystery word is dust.
Yes.
Oh, no 1,000 Suns references, not allowed. I know you.
Okay. I won't. I wasn't gonna go there. Believe it or not.
See, there was this guy, and he tried to make a deal with magic, and then the god was just like, no, and he just said all is dust, and he turned all of his soldiers to dust. Anyway, that's Warhammer for you.
Wow, yeah, that was an extremely succinct. That was the most succinct summary of Warhammer lore I think I've ever heard, and you actually didn't lose anything out of it too. So well done.
Rest in peace.
I actually like the idea. So what immediately came to mind when I saw dust, and this is part of me reading also like pain as well. My mind is going to keep going back to that today. I guess I have Hellraiser on the brain.
Painful dust or pocket sand.
Yes,
for sure.
Pocket sand. Besides the Dale Gribble maneuver, which is legendary, I actually was thinking, sort of like Fallout. We mentioned that a little bit, like magical Fallout.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the term we can use for it.
The dust.
Is the dust. Like that sort of there's different franchises have different ideas behind it. The one that I can think that's the closest to what I'm thinking of is in the White Wolf games, the second generation of World of Darkness. The Mage the Awakening, they refer to magic, comes in different forms. Mana, as we think about it, isn't just fuel for magic. It's kind of like solid fuel for magic. You can actually solidify magic into what they call TAS. And that can go in all sorts of forms. You can literally have it like flowing water from a fountain. That's where the Fountain of Youth came from in that setting. Or in some cases, literally like dust that you have to gather up and refine. And I like the idea that maybe there's still some of that residual magic from that apocalypse, like in that city we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's basically Chernobyl, but magic. That would be what it is. Like, that's the risk. A little bit of wind kicks up, and suddenly the magic starts going haywire again, and God forbid you're anywhere near it.
Mark, do you have an idea?
I'm just building upon what you're just saying. What about, and this would mean that it would be extremely valuable, what if when you power technology or magic with dust, it works correctly?
Oh, so
we
dust
go.
is like the fixing powder. It makes everything work correctly.
I love that.
And then you'd have people dedicated to scouring the wastes for dust, because it will pay their salary for a year if they can find even just a small collection of it.
Oh, I love this.
I really like that idea. Just the idea of somebody going around with like a Dyson vacuum cleaner and just like sucking the air, like getting these filters. It's almost like it's like a weird. Now this is a weird analogy, but like honeycomb, like where they like scrape this dust off in like thick clumps and put it into a container and they sell it for whatever the currency would be. Probably a bartering-esque system in a lot of different places. But yeah, that's a really great idea, Mark. Oh my god.
And my first thought with that is like the kind of mining that's that a lot of the sort of mining that happens in poorer regions where you have like the major companies will come in, they'll mine the crud up an area. And then afterward, you'll have the private prospectors that'll come in, and then they'll just sort of go in with a shovel and a pickaxe and hope that they can find something that they can sort of scrounge up, and then they drag their haul into town and see what they can get for it. Only you're doing it with what is basically magic radioactive material. And
Right.
Yeah,
Right, and there should be some kind of cost, right? If you
Oh,
use dust, there's definitely got to be a cost, but it works, and that's why people are willing to take the risk sometimes.
It could probably put off like a really foul byproduct that's like really sick, or it can make humans just incredibly sick or kill people if you inhale this byproduct that's put off by the use of it.
Kira. I'll clarify that. So in the Akira anime, the psychics called espers, psychic powers are insanely unstable in Akira. Like if you're not careful, you can. Well, everyone has seen the Tetsuo GIF at this point. Like if you haven't, I don't know how you are on the internet at this point and haven't seen big swelling meat guy. But yeah, no, that happens if you're not careful. So to handle it, the government gives the Vespers medical injections of suppressants that keeps their magic, or in their case, psychic powers, in check. Maybe that's how it works. But what happens with the kids is that they're literal kids, but it artificially ages them. Like it damages their ability to replicate their cells. So these kids are like 6, 7 years old. They look like they're 80.
So dust
like
is like a
wrinkles,
magic
decaying.
suppressant, is what you're
Oh
saying.
my god, what if it has horrible side effects from using the dust, and so people will pay people to be dust conduits?
Or dust bunnies.
I
Oh my
wasn't going to go
God.
there. I was trying to stay on the serious tip for 70 seconds.
But I love that idea. I love that idea.
Why
That's
don't we call them
great...
dust bunnies? That's like a good like.
You could.
It's the Ray Bradbury tie. Just like fireman has a different meaning now than it did back then. You know, that sort of thing. I really like that idea. You have people that are literally like, I don't want to say lepers.
Like they will use the dust to do what you need them to do at the expense of their own lifespan or mobility or whatever, in exchange for large amounts of money.
That ties back
like
to
a magical taste tester, practically, literally putting their body on the line. Now, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, I want to build off that. This is very similar to an idea from N.K. Jemison's. I think it's the fifth element or the fifth season. Fifth element's a different thing. But basically, it's just like I only read like the first couple chapters because that book is so dark. But there's a concept where like basically people will send their children to become like conduits of magic because like of the earth like moving around and being so destructive that like only their children can like control these tectonic shifts. And I'm wondering if these dust bunnies are kind of similar, where it's like you go and it's like, okay, I'm gonna be put in a facility, and like my whole life is just gonna be like I'm gonna be suspended in a tube of some sort, and I'm gonna plug myself in and generate dust, or like become one of these Vespers, get injections, and like I know it'll age me, but like my family will be able to survive because of the dust. They're gonna live relatively happy lives.
Ooh, chills.
Which might be, I don't know, we're drawing a lot of Warhammer inspiration as well.
Go ahead.
Which is like extremely grim, but I think this fits the world in which like there are people who are just like it is a form of labor. All labor to some degree is the allowing of somebody's using your body in some way to produce something, and this is very literally your work. You're selling your body in order to create this byproduct to make magic radiation.
That is a really grim way to look at like a breadwinner for a family, just like giving up your entire.
It's the Matrix, right?
That's
I mean,
true,
it's the Matrix.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's literally just battery farms. Oops.
Yeah,
we did the Matrix.
Well, no, I mean,
That's not a bad thing.
I think you'd have two, right? You'd have the centralized ones who can obviously get more dust pumped into them and generate more magic or technology output. But then you also have ones that are roving, maybe between cities or or tribes or things of that nature that can do it as well, but it's not as clean, or it's not as productive, but it's also not a corporation. So I would think you could play with different aspects of that.
It's like a
Right.
local farmer versus like
Right.
Like- like
that's
merchants.
weird.
Like the classical or the more classic like interpretation of like medieval merchants, because
Yeah.
again, this is a really early, like the civilizations. I think we mentioned this in the last stream, but
I dropped
like
the
Horizon
feudalism
Zero
bomb.
Dawn. Yeah, like you're right. There's the F bomb. Damn. So, but yeah, like we mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn, because these are all very primitive societies. They might have advanced, complex elements in them, but they're just through sheer size. They're smaller, or they're not as complex as you would get. So you would have opportunities for folks. Maybe there's even guilds. I could totally see Dust Bunny guilds, where like
I
literally
only shop at the organic Dust Bunny Guild.
Yeah. just
No
like
GMOs for me.
just like, hey, if you want your mage to succeed on the battlefield, then you will have a team of dust bunnies from our guild backing them up. And if there's any backlash or anything that might occur, they'll stabilize it.
I mean, you could also take that concept, what you were saying with merchants. Maybe dust bunnies travel with merchants because they have protection. They have, you know, other merchants around them, and they're selling their body as service when they get to these tribes or small towns or small encampments. That
Yeah.
seems like, yeah. Or you could go join a giant battery and become like the Matrix. You know,
Yeah.
if there are corporations or large civilization groupings, it seems like that's something that could happen when you get enough people together.
Oh man, that's that's like
Oh, what if the equivalent of a library here has a dust bunny wing?
Oh God.
So that
Oh,
they
that's
can
so dark. I love
continue
that though.
research.
Hi, I'd like to check out one
Oh.
of your people. Oh no.
I mean, again, I'm gonna preface this out to everybody out there. This is a dystopia. We are leaning into the dystopia. It's gonna get dark. Just a heads up.
Yeah,
So-
obviously we don't like slavery. Right? That goes without saying.
Yeah.
This
is not a template for a world we want to live in. This is a template for a world that's going to be fun to explore narratively, which almost exclusively means you don't want to live in it. Almost always.
People out here being like, I want to live in the Warhammer universe. No.
No, you don't. No. There's a reason why when I was young, I thought being told, I hope you live in interesting times, I thought that was a good thing. But no, it's like it's like a curse. It's a terrible thing to tell someone. Yeah.
You're literally
everyone
living in a
who's
world
lived
that's
through
5
2020
minutes.
is going to be like, I hope you live an interesting life, you young jerk. And they'll be like, oh, that sounds great. And be like, you didn't live through 2020. You don't know. You don't know yet.
You don't know me.
You'll learn.
Somebody said in the chat, are these bunnies vegan?
Oh yeah. Ty was like, these bunnies vegan. Yeah.
Or did they say, is this dust vegan or is these bunnies vegan?
Yeah. Is this dust vegan? I love that.
That's funny. I think we've you guys literally made an entire like short story out of just one word. God, I love this show. Oh
yeah, seriously. My favorite thing too is that these are all potential options.
Yeah.
Like none of them are off the table. We don't have to do exclusively merchants or exclusively like giant battery farms. One nation could have a battery farm, and that's their claim to fame. Others might have guilds of dust bunnies. Other dust bunny guilds might literally exist in the waste and loan themselves out to people. These are all, none of them are mutually exclusive. I love all of these ideas. They're so cool.
I'm also getting weird like leper colonies, like a biblical time like leper colony vibes from these dust bunnies. We should move on to the next word though. Great discussion, guys.
Heck yeah.
So as we are actually getting close to the hour, I'll let the guests decide. Would you like us to do, I'll let the guests and the viewers decide. Would you like us to do more of the mystery words, or would you like to take prompts from the crowd? I'd like to hear from you guys.
Let's see what the crowd has to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll do one more mystery word. I can pronounce my R's. I'll let you guys, Mark, Aaron, I'll let you guys decide which is the last mystery word we will cover before the break.
Why don't you pick, Aaron?
I really liked Depth of Flaws.
I do too. I really do.
Let's run with it.
Okay. Depth of flaws it is. So, any immediate ideas come to mind with depth of flaws?
Mark, I was hoping you could kind of run us through your thought process behind
Yeah.
that.
So since I didn't have any framework for context for what the words were about,
Mhm.
what I actually did was my generic checklist for creating an NPC. Pain.
Oh.
What's their pain? What's their hope? And then what's their depth of flaws? Is this a person that is ultimately good but sometimes make bad choices, or is it just a shit person that is always gonna, Critical Role, for however much flack it gets on the internet, Matthew Mercer does some great stuff with his NPCs. Essek was a character that was good at heart but ultimately betrayed the party, and then through a long tail kind of regained the trust of the party. And so I always like to experiment with what's the depth of any particular character's flaws. How does that influence what they do, which usually ties into their pain and their hope? What is driving them to do the things they do, etc. So that's kind of where I was going with depth of flaws. And I guess you could extrapolate that out to these societies that you have in this world. What is, it is a dystopia. It is not a place you'd want to live in. What's the depth of flaws of the ruling bodies? Is there a government, and how corrupt is it? Or is it on the up and up? That's not something that maybe people have thought about as they're doing world building, is where does the power lie, and how corrupt is it? So that might be where depth of flaws could apply here.
I like
Okay.
that. I like
Yeah.
So we don't have like we've been saying, we have very broad strokes for things, and we don't have any like actual foundations laid down for our societies. But actually, weirdly enough, I think the foundation of a society is where the corruption lies the most. So coming up with like these sort of wow, that was really nihilistic of me. Sorry.
Somebody just clipped that section just to put on infinite loop on Twitter.
I'm
Just
gonna
letting
go
you know
there.
now, Nick.
Just make you a black and white, add some glitching behind it, and you would have the perfect creepypasta line right there. Beautiful.
Oh man, that Nietzsche's rolling over in his grave. That's not even the philosopher I'm thinking of. But I think from a writing perspective, starting with flaws is like the best thing to go. And like from those flaws, what bad comes of it, but what good comes of it, because there are some good things to come out of flaws, even if they are like, for example, this is a really real world interpretation, but people. Actually, I shouldn't draw that. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. That's a really bad idea. I'm not going to say it on stream. I'll talk to you guys about it on the break, but I'm not saying it on stream.
Aaron and I were just like, what's he going to say?
I won't.
Dancing on that power line there.
It's... Yeah.
I feel you.
I'm not going to go any further with that. It's not going to go to a good place. I don't want to get kicked off Twitch on my like third stream. So.
That's fair.
That's
But the point
history
is still
books.
well taken. Like, I don't think it's controversial for us to say that, hey, guys, maybe the structures of power on planet Earth might occasionally be corrupt, and you may have encountered them. I wonder if that's a shared experience for literally every person on planet Earth.
Right. What I was sort of
No,
getting
my
at is-
experience on Earth has been pretty normal, and nothing bad has ever happened to me. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I mean, like, it must be nice. But like, it's in the way that what I'm getting at is like, in a way I can say it without getting canceled. There are certain laws and rules that are deeply ingrained in societies that benefit one group of people more than the other. There you go.
Yeah.
That's how I can say that without getting yelled at.
I think we already have the framework for a very corrupt government in some ways, because like
Yeah.
we already have wizards that are living people, and we also have people that are whatever government exists, maybe it's not as big as like a nation state, even if it's just a city state, they allow and condone both the ability to sell your body and harm yourself. That is something that they are they allow and in some ways encourage, right? So like we know that they're not great. And also I think they hold the threat of, like, there's a very literal, like, if you wake up in the morning and you see a big, like, if you live under a nuclear missile silo every day of your life, like,
Right.
you're going to be reminded of who is in power, and it's the people who can push that button. So I feel like that's a great place to be, like, you know, the flaw of the society is that, people are living under the threat of imminent destruction. Somebody somewhere, you might not even, I don't know who, you know who is actually controlling the reins of power, but the people in this area can see a literal manifestation of the people who are in power and their ability to destroy everything for, no reason. And then when they, go to work and plug themselves into the matrix, and they're reminded that, like, oh, today I'm going to lose 1 year of my life for
Today
somebody
I
who's
will.
my family will be great, but, like, I'm literally giving up my life for this. So, like, I think whatever government is there allows the, literalization of destroying human life in order to, create profit for someone.
Oh,
Right.
I think the more I think about this, the more the more this resonates with me based on all the stuff we've been talking about.
Hmm.
You should have, it's not necessarily a government, but a school to help mages unlock their potential or turn them into dust bunnies if they don't have enough potential.
Yeah, that actually is
And-
something Omni and I talked about.
Yeah, we bandied
Here
that
we
idea
go.
about, at least for one nation state. Like, again, we haven't solidified any nation state completely, but we've been, at least over the first episode and over Chip Off the Block yesterday, we've kind of been, like, apparently piecing together the infrastructure of maybe one city state.
Yeah.
And it definitely is we abduct your kids when they're young to prevent their mage powers from, accidentally glassing like a city block. At least that's the justification. So the child soldier mages come from that region, at least one of them.
Well,
And
that would
there's
be
an
your
academy
city
as
state.
well.
That
Yeah.
would be like Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
Because they're neutral in all the other conflicts and wars, whatever, but everyone needs them because
Right.
everyone needs a mage in their city.
It definitely could be that they loan their power out. I could see that. Like, the bigger city-states might help smaller city-states or civilizations survive in the same way that, I mean, in real life, that is basically how a medieval structure works. It's, hey, if you guys want to live on your lands unpillaged by brigands, then we'll happily build a keep and have a local lord live there with his coterie of knights or warriors. You guys just have to, tie the not insignificant portion of your survival to them. And in return, they will tithe upwards to us, and we will all be hunky-dory. So I wouldn't be surprised about that being a thing.
And see, I think that would also encourage for PCs. Maybe you have, I don't want to call him a wild mage, but a self-taught mage, and that's very frowned upon, obviously, by this city-state because it means that there's power outside of their control.
Yeah.
So like an
I know one of the-
untethered is what we could call those. The
Yeah,
tethered would be the
untethered.
ones.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the tethered
Oh,
being the ones that are
no.
Yeah.
like tied to an institution or a military or something like that. Untethered are people that learn their stuff by themselves.
Yep.
Right.
And would be, the propaganda from this city-state would be that those are going to be the downfall or the bringer of the next apocalypse. You can't have untethered running around when it's probably not in reality that bad, but at the same time they want to keep their concentration of power base and keep being their, the one that everybody turns to for trained and practiced mages
Right.
or dust bunnies.
It could even be that bad. I'm going to put this out
could.
there. Like,
Sure, it could.
it's, it actually, it's the thing I always like to lean on is, like, what if bad guy has a little bit of a point? Like, not enough of a point to justify the terrible things that they're doing, but enough to be like,
You can see where they're
well,
coming
now that
from.
we're just right, like, now that we've decided your way of running things is fundamentally messed up and we're not doing it, we need to find a better alternative. And man, we are scratching our head a little bit on how we're going to do it without ourselves becoming sociopath. And, like, magic is, again, so unstable. We literally distorted the laws of physics and magic as a weapon of war in a prior age so bad it messed everything up. So I
have
could
a
totally
follow-up
see
question.
that. Yeah.
Do you guys have some kind of mechanic in mind for making magic or technology random or fail? Like, are you going to roll percentile dice and it only works on a 40 and above or something like that?
So far as I recall, we've been sort of just world building pure without focusing on whether it gets turned into a role playing game or a video game or a book or anything.
Sure.
I don't think either of us is against the idea, though, of banding that around. I definitely know that, like, if no one else does something with this, holy crow, I am definitely at least going to try to make a Caltrop core version of this setting.
I think
Straight up.
I think
So
Call
I
of
would
Cthulhu.
think-
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was just going
Cthulhu,
to say,
yeah.
when you get to those brass tacks here, I think that might be an actual physical, mechanical difference. Is maybe someone who's gone to the city state and studied under the school will have a higher percentage of being able to successfully cast magic, whereas untethers are, they can still do it, but they have a greater challenge and more likely, as you said, to blow up a city block instead of whatever it is they're trying to do. So just as you get down the line, that might be a thing to consider.
It's actually a bit of a. What I was thinking was the closest thing I think this system could use is a percentile system for that exact reason, because I think percentile would be a very good representation of sort of like the randomness of magic and the unreliability of it. When the first thing that came to mind, you're talking about levels of education having to do with sort of like how well you are with tethered magic, quote unquote. So, for example, in the same way that Dungeons and Dragons, because everybody knows Dungeons and Dragons, I'm wearing the frickin' shirt. Different types of magic are tied to different stats. So, coming back to Call of Cthulhu, like tethered would be using their education stat for magic and stuff like that. They'd be using their education and maybe their power, while an untethered would be using their power and their intelligence, which intelligence is derivative of street smarts and things that they picked up on the way, creativity, thinking outside the box. So they're using less about what they know and or what they've read and what they've learned, and more about like what they've learned from their previous experiences. So untethered living very long, probably not a reality, because tethered are a lot more disciplined in that regard.
And Centrifuge in the chat made an excellent point. The more dust you use, the better percentiles
True.
top of that.
Yeah.
There we go.
I actually like tying that also to the level of power as well, because it's sort of the getting back to the Akira idea. The trick with being a Vesper in Akira, being a psychic, and using these drugs is that, yes, they stabilize your powers. They also nerf them. That's how they gain stability. You aren't as powerful as you were before, but the power you do have, you can direct far more readily and with far less danger. Maybe using dust is a way to stabilize magic by sort of cooling it a little bit. It's like throwing water on a burning engine. Technically, the hotter you get your engine, the faster you'll go, until you crack the engine, and then it just stops, or explodes, and everyone within like 10 meters dies, because it's a bomb now. And you could use dust in a similar way. If you use dust, or if you go to the academy, and you tether yourself, and you go through whatever horrifying, let's be real, painful rituals probably involved in tying your unique brand of ungodly magic to you in a way that won't cause structural damage unless you want it. That process, it does improve those percentile dies. It does, in like the lore, make you more stable a mage, but it inherently removes some of your potential lethality or power. Whereas the untethered are walking around with basically no filter between them and the cosmos. Whatever they call down is pure, unfiltered death from above, or whatever they've got going. And as a result, the untethered are kind of like that. They're kind of that, the purest form of wild magic, where it's like you don't want to be near it. It's really powerful. You might have use of it, but like stand a little further away from me when you do that. Thanks.
Yeah, I really like that idea. If we're thinking about mechanics, like if you're using a percentile system, like maybe you always get like a plus 30 to your roll, and like if the threshold is 40, like you only have like a 10% chance of actually messing everything up and just blowing yourself up. But like, you also can't roll above like a 60 on the thing. So it's like, okay, you're capped. Whereas like, you can hit 100 if you're untethered, but like, one of those days you're gonna roll a 1 and it's gonna be like, oh no.
Shucks,
You
there
get
goes
the
the
full
neighborhood.
table. Yeah, you
Sure.
get the full table's worth of results as an untethered. The
Yeah.
full table, the good and the bad. But you tether yourself and you start using dust bunnies, and you lose a little bit of the top and you start losing a bit more of the bottom, and you end up in the middle of that table where you're gonna get reliable results, but probably not accidentally make a 30-meter crater.
I
And then-
just think you've really got to keep the really bad side effects for dust, and it should be super rare.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that it's wars would be fought over it, much like spices are. And I'm not talking about Dune, although that's
Oh, I thought you were
And
talking
also
about Dune.
pretty
That's a good
accurate, yeah.
topic.
also accurate, yes. But yeah, it should be like super valuable, and that's why this city state will lend its aid to some people, because there's a concentration of dust in their borders, and then they can send their people in to collect the dust in payment for their services, that type of thing. It just makes sense for that city state to kind of, but dust should it should have not just the limiter, but it should have some kind of like, it takes 5 years off your life, or it ages you 5 years when you use it, or something horrific, just absolutely horrific.
I think that's
There is no power without sacrifice in this world.
Exactly.
I think that is a good thought to come back to, or stop on, actually, because you guys made some really cool points with dust. Dust was the word we keep coming back to, but it's such an interesting concept. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break, depending on how long these fellows need, and we'll come back. Please, while we are on break, send your questions, send your prompts, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back, I believe. Yep, everything looks on the up and up. Oh, cameras didn't mess up this time. Audio didn't mess up this time. Oh, I have a guardian
Perfect.
angel watching me. Okay. So, folks, like I said, we are now taking prompts. So let's see where we begin. Oh my god, there's so much in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. I see Centrifuge, I see TN Dungeonator, Neris, all drop prompts. So let's see. And
Oh.
I am gonna.
I need a
Can I say
bookmark.
what I like?
What's? Oh yeah. No, if you see one you like, let's hear it.
Centrifuge has a really good idea. He says prompt ideas of how many suns, moons could this play a role in the effectiveness of dust.
Oh.
Huh.
So like lunar
other
and
words-
solar cycles.
Right. So like at a blank time period, there's more dust because it's double high noon, etc. People could literally go to war at a time period due to timing of sun moon timeline.
Oh.
The Tenzing's common approach. I like that actually
Yes, exactly.
a lot. You got me. You got me.
Let me
I
put
love
in a
that.
prompts. Wow, that's a really interesting concept. Okay, that reminds me of you could have like wizard duels that are kind of like westerns. Like you only duel at double high noon,
Yeah.
and if it ain't
Interesting
double high,
because then like that city state, if it has the dust battery farm, it would only want to run it at certain times because it's more effective and they get more out of those people
Right.
sacrificing their lifespan or whatever at those points in time. That's
That
interesting.
makes sense, yeah. Especially for things like like the idea comes back to like choirs of magic, right? Like you do things together, or you do like sympathetic magic. While magic is not very subtle in this world and very specific to the user, I definitely do like the idea that like the big first strike style uses of magic probably do rely on like, hey, the stars are aligned for this. We're good for this. Especially since the power and the magic seems to come from the sky, from the stars. So that literally does make sense. A clear night could give you literally more power, as opposed to a very cloudy night or like the middle of the day with both stars.
And then you'd still have like if there's one or two moons, full moons would play more into that than not just a cloudy night or a clear night. If you had a clear night and a full moon, then it might be 2x. If you have a clear night and two moons, full moons, it might be 3x. Something like that.
Okay.
I
the
like
game.
the idea of oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're the guest. I want to hear you.
I was gonna say I like the idea of like poker, sort of like if there's two suns and three moons, like that's your full house.
I love that. I love that so much.
And then like I don't think we want tidal locked like planets, because that's then you just lose half of your planet mass, and that's kind of no fun. But like I do like the idea of it's like, shoot, we were gonna go to war, but like there's only 2 moons tonight, but they have a but our like lunar based magic is gonna be weak, but the 2 suns are gonna have an eclipse later on, and that's gonna mess everything up.
The literal can't do it stars meme is actually a thing. I love that, actually.
I like that a lot too. Just the whole idea of like magic being entirely reliant on the time of day and the environment, and like, that's cool.
Could make an entirely new dimension to the society. You have the dust bunnies, you have the mages. You could literally have like, when we mentioned stellar cartography as an earlier tech, you could literally have stellar cartographers or folks who focus on the movement of planets and stars being a huge impact. They could be in the same level of importance as, okay, so the dust bunnies are the living airbags for mages to make sure they don't accidentally crash and burn their own magic. And these guys over here let you know when and how to use their magic most effectively and help a nation state properly deploy them.
God, we just created another entire economy section.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. There we go.
It's the astrologists who tell you when it's that
Yeah.
also travel with the dust bunnies and the merchants to tell you when's the right time to use magic to supplement the crops or to do this or that. That's
Jesus.
Crazy good.
Centrifuge, that was
Weathermen, yeah.
such a.
Yeah.
This is exactly why we want your prompts, folks. Nice, like just nice.
So the idea we had from that is literally like astrologists are more crucial than we could ever imagine in this world. They literally
Yeah.
make like it's like an almanac, but you actually need it.
Right.
Even if you're not a farmer. I mean,
Right.
So okay, then to get back to the crux of that question that we kind of came across a really cool idea and danced around. So are we going to turn this into Tatooine with multiple stars or, multiple moons?
multiple stars is not scientifically possible, technically speaking. But
right, yeah, I know.
that being said, there is a weird planet that NASA just discovered that revolves around 2 different suns.
Oh god, that world has to be the most unique breed of hellscape imaginable. I can't even.
That's the worst.
It's a gas giant, so I don't think it would,
There you go.
I
Yeah.
don't think it would ever exist. Like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
This thing's something moving in like a scientific figure 8. Like,
Figure 8, yeah.
I mean, like, there are some. If you guys ever, like, anyone out there is interested in the best inspiration for like depictions of hell or other planes of existence or whatever, just look up what NASA has found out there and theorizes. There's literally a planet that's so cold on one side and so hot on the other that the rock on one end molten jets up into the sky as vapor, hits the equator where there's a permanent hurricane, which then cools it down on the cold side. So the cold side is constantly raining boulders that can be literally tons of weight. And the other side is literally like getting sandblasted by its star. And then in the middle is a hurricane of perpetual doom. And that's a planet. So like, just saying, just trust me, if you ever want to have wonderful depictions of hell, you'll find it there. I promise you.
Literally like mountains made of diamond. Like truth is so much stranger than fiction. Like
it really is
so wild.
And also,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say also we did break the laws of physics a little bit in the setting, so like we do have a little bit of leeway. The possibility of like, who knows? Maybe when the bonk happened, we literally could have split the star in half. We don't know.
We know who scorched the sky.
Yeah. It was you. Wasn't the machines. I do like the idea at least of, even if we don't have multiple moons and stars, you know what? We mentioned it before. The idea of literally calling comets. What if they just become new moons? If the magic gets dismantled or something? What happens when you call Ultima and Sephiroth doesn't get through the whole thing because some guy chump hits him in the junk and he goes, oh, I'll have to recast that. Well, what happens to the meteor? Well, it gets caught in an unstable orbit around either the moon or the Earth or somewhere between the Lagrange point, and hey, look at that. We have new moon, whatever we're going to call that one. Hope we don't get too many more
Twilight
of those.
novel.
Yes.
Somebody...
T Dungeonator has a intertwined prompt. He says, calling back an earlier diagonal thought I had, to what extent do the untethered experience life differently? In terms of literal perception, I mean. Can they see the stars they're connected to? Can they see more than tethered mages or other people?
That's a really good question. I think the tethered would be disciplined to see things differently. Not in the sense that they have like... They don't have like a tint over everything. I think they would just be able to see phenomena that a lot of people couldn't. In the sense that, like, let's say that some people on this planet could see the Aurora Borealis and some people couldn't. In that regard, like they can see strange phenomenon in the sky. I don't think they'd see anything like, for example, I think what I like the thing that I'm getting in mind is elves being able to literally see people like bending the weave around them or like absorbing the weave depending on magic casters. That wouldn't be a thing. I think it would be make more sense that they see these phenomenon in the sky. And maybe even astrologists and astronomers can see these phenomenon in the sky because they've trained themselves. They have certain conditions, probably drugs, to like be able to like let them see these certain things so that they can map these things down. And that's probably why astrologists are so like useful, because they're soft mages.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the idea of, some animals can see in spectrums we can't see, and that's why we make radio telescopes and infrared telescopes and ultraviolet telescopes, because there's some shit we can learn from that we couldn't possibly see otherwise. So using technology or using disciplines and understanding of the new world's magic and science to parse out that kind of knowledge in a way that no one else can refine, it would be valuable. And there is, it also must be said again, we have mentioned this, that magic as a system in this is very individualized. This isn't you go and learn abjuration and then you go and you decide evocation for a bit and you go and say, oh yes, this is Tasha's mind whip. And then someone else goes, oh, I will use Tensor's floating disc. There's none of that. The magic is highly individualized. So I wouldn't be surprised if some mages literally do see things differently. Like, how would you see the world if, as a result of training and refining your magic, you literally calcify into living jade? Like, your eyes ain't working normally. That's not how rock works. They ain't working, but you're apparently still floating and talking. So I definitely think, depending on how your magic solidifies or how whatever the tether brings to you in terms of magic, however it has delivered your power to you as a mage, it has a good chance of altering you fundamentally, like debatably even human at a certain point. It's the post-human thing, right? Like, how much beyond human do you go where it's like you can't even use the word human anymore, reasonably? Is Dr. Manhattan human, or is he just the weirdest blue god we've ever seen? So I think that is an interesting point. I think it comes down to individual experience, though. I don't think there's any one overarching thing beyond what our friend here said. What my lovely co-host said is that there is probably a slightly higher perception of some things, but it's not quite as refined as, say, the astronomers would have.
I think that's definitely.
I'll stop trying to produce the show now by reading this.
No, you're good. I'm also looking.
No, dude.
I appreciate you.
Great.
I'm doing a lot of stuff here. I'm looking at the chat on my phone.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. And honestly, that sort of thing, that works, right? Like, that's what we're here for. Those sort of interactions.
Neris said something. Yeah, the diagonal.
A lot of fantastic ideas in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just looking at the dust brain thing. I think the next one. Yeah, it's a question. Does dust affect the brain? As in, when it's being used by a person, does it get past the blood-brain barrier and into the brain? In that sense, would a dust bunny's physiology be one thing making it a bit safer for them to use dust versus the average person? Pharmacology has been on my mind lately, which is fair. Like, is repeated use of dust and the eventual becoming of a dust bunny, is there actually a point where you become a dust bunny? Is that an altered state in the same way that a mage is an altered state of humanity?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, just from kind of what we were saying about it before, I would think it's just someone who can act as a conduit for the magic to help it work at the expense of their lifespan. So I don't think they'd ever become build a resistance to it, or it would be safer with them. It's just so that the mages don't necessarily have to use the dust and suffer the consequences from it.
A literal magical insulator for them, basically.
Right.
That's fair. I definitely could see that. I could see likewise that maybe, in fairness, this is still a young civilization, so I can't really say I'm not even sure they would know the full reaction that happens. Who knows if maybe hundreds of years down the line you get the equivalent of Dune spice users get blue eyes or turn into literal fish people who can bend space and time. Dust might physiologically alter someone, but we just don't know yet. I feel like that's definitely a big question. That's probably gonna be left in for a lot of these things. It's new. This is a new world, and all the rules are broken and rebound and fused in weird angles. So, maybe, but so far, no, I think seems to be the way we're leaning.
So I know I said I was not going to do this anymore, but I did see something earlier.
By all means, point it out, man. You're good.
Wasn't a prompt, but I thought it was very good in that there should be something that counteracts magic and technology in a rock, paper, scissors kind of way in this scenario that the BBEG or whoever is going to be the bad guy can exploit. there needs to be something that offsets. You know, there's got to be some diametrically opposed organization or entity for this city state that controls all the mages, something that threatens them and threatens the rest of humanity. The question is, what would that be? And maybe it's something else. Maybe it's, yeah, I'm not sure what it would be, but somebody said the BBEG has to have the vulnerability. They mastered the vulnerability of whatever the city state is, and it seems like there should be something there.
I I know I've been talking about dust a lot, but while dust like refines magic by sort of lowering its potency, dust could also, in that regard, if there's a lot of it, it could completely nullify magic. So maybe there's people that actually are not like dust bunnies, they technically speaking are dust bunnies, but more in the sense that like they're able to use the dust, like they've become a conduit for it, like an actual conduit, and they're able to use it sort of like magic. Or they're like a walking sort of a nullifier. It's like putting up a, excuse me, it's like putting a magnet up to an old TV. Like they just like repel magic. They're the antithesis of magic. And that's why dust
Literal
bunnies,
nulls. Yeah.
yeah, and most dust bunnies don't live long enough to like enter that state. But there are some that the BBEG, as you were saying, maybe has sort of like found a way to become this state and like exist in it, sort of like I want to say like ghouls from Fallout. They have like this sort of like they've been so corrupted by the radiation that they're something fundamentally different, but they're still people, right?
Hmm.
And maybe it's taking that a step further, since we had originally said that dust would allow people to use technology and have it work as well. Maybe that's your answer. Maybe it's a group of technological centric individuals who use dust as a magic nullifier and to make their guns and bullets and stuff like that work.
Witch
So they have-
hunters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Witch hunters.
I love that idea. Like that could work on multiple levels. 'Cause we did mention, like in the first one, the idea that some nations might embrace technology over magic or as opposed to magic, whether that's personal edict or like religious views or localized cultural views. And you know, it might just literally be a matter of, guys, we'd love to use magic, but there's only like 300 of us, and if one of you guys accidentally splits open like an egg and turns everyone into a houseplant by accident, we really don't have a civilization big enough to take those kind of losses. We'll take our chances with making grenades.
Right.
That could definitely work. I love the idea of like super dust bunnies, like a 1 in 1,000 mutation, where some people take dust and they turn into like a gentle insulator for magic users by burning themselves almost. Whereas other folks take it and they become a magic capacitor. They soak it in and they just turn it off. Which would be a huge deal. We mentioned in the first episode the idea that mages, when they fight and war, don't usually whiz bang at each other with magic spells. They stand on opposite hills, chanting and attempting to dismantle the other one's tether and prevent them from being able to channel magic. Because if they both walked out there and let everything out, no one's going to win the battle. Just one mage is going to go home, the other one's going to be in a crater along with everyone else. They'd be like, yeah, we were going to take that city, but I accidentally gave it a thermonuclear winter. Sorry. But having an anti-mage, having a dust bunny, or a dust null. Dust null? Feeling it out? Better open up better words?
Or they could as someone said in the chat earlier, they could become a bird-like person and be a feather duster.
I do like the idea of a very inventive community making gliders for a null. Just to be like, we don't want them to walk up to a mage, just fly over it and shut their magic down. Literally the magic sponge equivalent of a cruise missile. But yeah, that's a great idea. I love that.
I mean, maybe that is where we get the blood-brain barrier idea. Like maybe like, you know, for 99% of the population, like, you know, dust affects you normally, but like there are those one people who are, the dust does cross the blood-brain barrier and it turns them into these nulls. And like, you know, we using Fallout rules, we could turn them into zombies or whatever, but we could just be like, and for some reason it makes you a big crow.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on how magic-y we want to get here. But I do really like the idea of just like, instead of corrupting you and turning you into a corpse, it turns you into you're just a bird now.
T Dungeonator says wizard hunters are called dustbusters.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm not even angry. I'm just impressed at this point. I do like that. I do like the idea again that one of the fundamental things we've established in this setting is that there is no such thing as power without a cost. So magic will transform you, and there's absolutely no reason to believe that anti-magic won't transform you in some way. I don't think it would ever get as extreme as like literal bird people, because I think one of the things we sort of like soft/hard came to the realization in the first one was like, this is largely a humanoid or humanoid with emphasis on human setting. So like if there are other things, they're very human derivative, not like like basically Magic the Gathering, D&D, or even Starfinder, where you have human and then you have, is that a floating crystal statue that talks and is magic? Well, that's a player character. Cool.
There we go.
Yeah, love you, Shard Mines. That's not a dig.
I love Shard Mines, man.
It's a cool thing.
I would think that if you're gonna have these, you're calling them nulls, I think, these concentrated either anti-magic or batteries or things like that, that there should be even an extra step where maybe they become simple-minded, because at that point they're no longer going to be in possession or control of anything, because they've evolved into this just living battery. And that way it's a little more compelling of why it's rare and it happens, and then we have to take care of them.
Like Tranquil from Dragon Age.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You hit a
That's
certain
exactly
point.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's basically this level of magical restraint basically lobotomizes you to a degree. It alters you on a fundamental level. Right. That's an interesting idea. That could even play into why they're a big bad guy. Like straight up, it could, like, the process might divorce you from what you are. It's like a thing that I remember from World of Darkness, where the idea is what happens to someone who doesn't have a soul in World of Darkness, because there are things that do that. Apparently, you can pull someone's soul out of their chest in Mage. That's a thing. In case anyone's curious.
I never worried about that. I just carried around light bulbs and turned them into sunlight, and then exploded the entire lifetime of the light bulb at once to send vampires into torpor. That's all you gotta do.
That's the coolest thing. I love that. I do remember reading that in Necromancy and being like, is there a practical application to soul manipulation? It just seems cruel and douchey, but apparently, like, there is, because if you remove the soul from someone, they change fundamentally, because the soul in World of Darkness is the point where you get moral from. Like, what makes you at your most fundamental core is your soul. You exist without it, but your body steadily becomes more and more derivative. Billboarding from Destiny 2 with the Exos comes to mind, where it's you're you, but the important spark that determined your morals and ethics, that's gone now. You're really just kind of a sociopath. And it gets worse and worse until eventually you either descend, you literally, abandon humanity, become monkey. Like, you literally go there, or you just one day don't have the will to breathe anymore. I do like the idea that might be a path for a big bad evil guy, a dust null who it has altered them so fundamentally that their sense of ethics of right and wrong has been bent to blue-orange morality, just from the altered state of what they've become.
And I think in that case, a lot of these twisted people that get like dust lobotomized, I don't think all of them would be like evil, so to say. I think a lot of them would either like you were saying, they'd fly to one far end of the spectrum or the other. They would have like a savior complex, or they would have sort of an idea just like, oh well, all the people need to be like me because I'm so unbelievably advanced. I need to show the people like what I've become and what they could also become, and we could literally restore our lost civilizations in the matter of like a century.
I think I would want to make those be the extreme, like, how am I trying to say this? Like if dust nulls are like 1 in 1,000, then the ones that actually have purpose one direction or another should be 1 in 10,000 beyond that,
Yeah.
and all the rest are just sheep. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because then
shepherds in their flock.
yeah, because then you're like, then you're if the player characters are able to ever acquire a dust null, then they have to take care of them. They have to tell them what to do. They have to, it sets up that morality, that questionable morality of, do we send this person in against another mage because they could die? Or do we keep them with us? Or do we take care of them? Do we let them go free? Do we hand them off to somebody else? So I think that's a more interesting conversation than having them always be a savior or it puts choices on the player characters.
It's the Hodor problem.
Yes.
What do you do with someone who is so dedicated to following your orders that you could order them to kill themselves?
Right.
Is there an ethical boundary you are willing or not willing to cross with that kind of power, regardless of how useful that person may or may not be? A practical means. Foundation's Mule comes to mind. Yeah, exactly. Same thing. It's literally a ward of the state, or in this case, a ward of everyone around them, divorced from their individuality. I like that. And it does set up like it is the exception. And it also is a thing, too. I'm going to just put this out there. Sociopathy does not mean you're evil. It is an absence of empathy with other people, but it is not an absence of ethics or an absence of behaviors. The bulk of sociopathy sufferers actually are just normal people who just happen to struggle with empathy. Becoming a serial killer or some terrible thing, that's a choice. And even folks with sociopathy have that choice. So just to clarify with that, everybody out there, that is an important distinction here. We are talking in a fantasy setting.
And that's
literal dust mages.
I want to be real careful with that sort of thing, just because I do want to always center the humanity of people, even if they do have some sort of change to their cognitive state. We want to make sure that whatever we're working with, they are all still fundamentally people.
Agreed.
True.
And I think that also can be reflected on the player character nature too. Like, there's always exceptions, and you can make that exception one way or another. The goal is not to lock it away or broaden it under generalizations until it's no longer usable. And Red, I send that over to you because I can see you're about to talk.
What I was going to say is, when you're dealing with this is sort of off topic, but we are nearing the end of the show, so after this point, we're probably going to do outros and shout outs if you guys want to do those. But the point to be made with that is that there's this thing in fantasy and a lot of just other writing where they use a mental illness as an excuse for someone to be evil. And that's a big, big, bad thing to do, because you're sort of giving people the illusion that people with mental illnesses aren't normal and they're not trying to be normal like the rest of us. I mean, I have ADHD. People, like you were saying with sociopathy, they deal with that. They're not evil. They're just like us. They just struggle with certain social things, And what you'll see a lot in recent stuff, and even like especially stuff back then, is people that are like sociopaths and stuff like that. They're portrayed always as villains. Well, that could actually be an interesting thing for a protagonist to sort of deal with, this sort of like lack of empathy and stuff like that. And it's not because they're not trying, obviously, it's just because they sorely lack it. I just feel like we tie, even now, even in like modern fiction, we sort of tie mental illness to being bad, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Because people with mental illnesses are normal people. Some of the most influential people of all time, Leonardo da Vinci, they highly suspect that he had high-functioning autism. And they suspect that people like who we're listening to right now, Mozart, they suspect that he had high-functioning autism as well.
It is... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one of the things that I really try when I'm developing when I'm developing challenging BBEGs for my players, I really try and build a nature versus nurture kind of system instead,
Mhm.
where, you know, the things and experiences that they went through led them to see the world in this way, and that's, they think they're the hero of their own story.
Right.
That is so cliche, but 100% works for villains every time. These are the things that led them to believe that they're actually the heroes, even though they're not, you know, there's nothing mentally wrong with them. They're just driven in that direction. I try and stay away from that as much as possible in terms of assigning that type of stuff. But, you know, I think the challenge that you have, Nick, when people go to play a character that has sociopathy, is that a lot of people can't relate to that, and then they don't know where the touch points are to play those characters. So it's very difficult for people to do that. I don't have ADHD, and I can't understand what that's like because I've never experienced it myself. So I have no touch points other than to do the dog from Up and go squirrel.
Squirrel.
You know, that's the closest that's the
Yeah.
closest touch point I have. And you know, I'm telling a joke. Obviously, I'm
No,
not
no, you're
making
not. You don't
anyone
have to
with
worry about offending me.
ADHD. But that's you know, I think that's very difficult for player characters to do if they have no touch points for that. But then we should also remember that for the villains too.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's an excellent point. And
Yeah.
ADHD is pretty much just like that, like squirrel. You're thinking about one thing, and then your brain's just like, I want to go here. I want to go here now. That's ADHD is just the constant influx of different thoughts, and it's hard to manage. But it's like, you know, I'm not suffering because of it, and I don't have any sort of like I don't hate anybody without ADHD. I relate to people that ADHD because I'm sure that their brains are a lot more organized, and when I'm like getting organized, I'm like, this is what a normal person must feel like.
No, I'd say we're probably more similar than you would imagine.
I think the ultimate thing we're getting to is that whenever you're handling these kind of topics, regardless of the medium, whether that be movies, books, tabletop role-playing games, especially, in my opinion, tabletop role-playing games, because you embody these characters and interact with them in a way that is far more intimate than most other mediums, it all comes down to empathy and respect. If you don't have a personal experience with that, then you need to be open to learning and open to, at very least, not depicting it in a negative, derogatory light that would take real people and put them in a negative position. And that's really all you can do. The best we can hope for is, in a topic like this, admit ignorance, limit damage, limit interaction with it in a negative light. And I think what we can do is sort of go with the basic idea. This is a thing that occurs in the universe, that you do have instances where dust does alter the mind. It does alter your sense of self, and it can fundamentally change you as a person. Whether that's for good or ill might come down to the individual. It might even be up to the stars or the cosmos, and who knows. But I like to point out to people, especially about the topic of a big bad evil guy, is that there's a reason they are the big bad evil guy. They are the exception. They're not every person. Not every town has a big bad evil guy. In fact, most don't. Most are just people. Most of the villains you'll run across are just people. Most brigands you fight in D&D are just really poor and really tired, or they really just don't want to participate in feudalism, and who can really blame them? So, as long as you handle the topic with care, I think that's what matters here. So, to everyone out there, we see you. We understand this is a sensitive topic. We will respect it, and I think we will acknowledge it exists in this setting, that it can alter you, and we will leave it at that.
Yeah.
And probably just not delve too deep into the morality behind it or inherent morality. I think that goes into the idea also of DMDM. Putting a question there, also love you, DMDM. Glad to see you. What about evil characters?
It's
You can play
applicable.
one.
It's still applicable. You know, your evil character. I'm playing a character on a Saturday session. His name's Vaughn. His name is literally Vaughn. Like, so he's just this. He's really full of himself. But I'm not depicting that as a mental illness. The guy is literally insecure with himself. So of course he's
Yeah.
going to be like very sort of like proud of what little he has. That doesn't mean he has a mental illness. Even if he had a mental illness, which if he had a mental illness, if you had to like pin absolutely something to it, it probably would be
Right.
sociopathy. The idea of being, sort of like unable to empathize with other people. But in reality, he's not a sociopath. He's just very, very manipulative. And that's not a mental illness. That's just called being a piece of shit. So,
Right, yeah.
and that's an
I
evil
think
character.
it is. I think we're probably leaning away from having a cosmological good, evil, order, law thing. That
Yeah.
is very much a D&D construct, and it makes sense for some things in a universe where that is an underpinning element of the cosmos. But in this one, the cosmos kind of got broke. Like,
We're
a
morally
lot.
gray here.
Yeah,
Villains
exactly.
can be like Mark was saying, villains can be heroes in their own story, and in reality, we're all heroes in our own story. It's a very like human thing to sort of be like, oh, I think this way, and the world revolves around me, even if we don't like actively be like, oh, I put myself before others. The world still technically revolves around you, because guess what? You do a little spin in your chair. Wow, the whole world just spun, right? Like in the literal sense. So, you don't have to be. What I'm trying to say is, we all think from our own perspectives, our own experiences and stuff like that, and to some people our perspectives and opinions could be interpreted as evil or bad.
This is also a dystopia. So
True.
I'm just going to put this out there. There is definitely evil. There are
Wait,
people
are we
kidnapping
talking
kids.
about now or the game?
I'm going to go with the safe answer and go
Sorry.
with the game.
Both.
Yikes, but accurate.
Honestly,
Sorry, I had my 70 seconds of seriousness. I had to
Well,
put the joke in.
Considering we're coming to a close on the stream, I think we can drop the F-bomb now. Fuck. So,
yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's a great time to do outros. Before we begin, though, Mark, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. You guys have been just an absolute delight to have on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Would you guys like to do any shout outs, talk about any projects you're working on or anything like that?
Mark, do you want to go first?
Sure. Join us on Mondays for Emancipation of Dragons. That goes up on our YouTube channel, which is a horrible long thing of a link. Just check my Twitter links bio. It's all in there. It's @GamersLedge. And then our Twitch stream. We're actually on hiatus from all of our TTRPGs through the end of the holiday. So we're doing a lot of Fortnite, which, not necessarily TTRPG folks' cup of tea, but if you want to come hang out, chat, watch us as we get sniped in the head over and over again, you're more than welcome to come join us for that. Just say hi. But I do want to point out that we have custom emotes, and just for following, you get custom emotes. And we also have bit emotes and subscription emotes. So we're running the whole gamut. If you like comics, that type of thing, that's what most of our emotes are. So it's like the Flash saying "Let's go" or the AEW Championship belt saying "You win," stuff like that. So come check us out there, and that's twitch.tv/gamersledge. We have a goal to get to 500 follows by March, which is my birthday. So that's what we're aiming for. And that's probably. Other than that, you'll see me around the TTRPG Twitter sphere, trying to help people make stupid puns, because that's all I know how to do. And that's it. That's my shout out.
Thank you, man. Aaron?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter @AaronSXL. I'm mostly a writer, and I dabble in tabletop stuff. A lot of my stuff is pay what you want. If you like this show, I have a collaborative world building game called Craft a King, which is literally just like rolling a D100 and picking a random list of words and building an NPC based off that. I also just released Time Skip, which is a tool that provides a rules-like quick game to send your PCs from an established campaign into the future. So you can do stuff like training montages, faction takeovers, and even like have kids. So I think that people who have like long-running campaigns might think that was useful. And then just like personally, I do 2 podcasts with my friends. One where I'm an ex-Catholic, and I do talk about Christian media with my 2 ex-evangelical friends, and they are siblings. And then I do another one with my friend Layla, where we recommend media to each other. I think our latest episode was on the Beauty and the Beast Enchanted Christmas special, which was wild. But we've also done stuff. We just crowned our Fast and Furious episode the episode of the year. So
Hey.
we do a wide range of things. So if any of that is interesting to you, please follow me on Twitter at AaronSXL, and you'll see me tweet about that. Or just health policy in tabletop RPGs. Who knows?
By the way, I just wanted to say I've already purchased Time Skip, and it's awesome. So you should definitely.
Thank you
do
so
that.
much. I appreciate
Oh.
it.
I'll be sure to pick it up after the holidays because I'm kind of broke right now. To be quite honest. Omni?
It's at a ridiculously low price point. I'm just saying.
Oh,
Fair.
It's
You
$3.
should raise-
$3.
Yeah, you should
Okay,
really
hold on.
raise the. That's
Send me-
why I'm saying it's.
Send me a link
I
to
can
it.
really-
take for a couple pennies for that out. Yeah. I guess getting on the shout out for me, gonna drop a couple of other shout outs besides my own plug, which I will shamelessly insert here because here at this show we are totally fine with shameless plugs. Please do. First off, I'm gonna shout out DM Studios. That guy is an absolute beast. He hosts so many streams and so many players on his channel, puts an insane amount of effort into it. It is all passion. Him and his wife are both phenomenal. You can find them on Twitter. You can find them on Twitch. They are great, just wonderful members of the community. I'm also going to shout out Scald as well on Twitter. You will see her bounding about. She is truly a magnificent beast and absolutely uplifts the community. I promise you, if you see Scald, and you will know who I'm talking about, SKALD, jumping around on Twitter, promoting and uplifting people with incredible ideas and giving them a little boost to get through, you'll know immediately who I'm talking about. Wonderful person.
Second Scald, I used her traps in some of my home games, so highly recommend.
Yes, 100%. As for me, you all know me. I normally stream, but I've been taking this past month and up until I'm finished with doing the Legacy demo, I've been taking off from streaming and mostly off from promoing, which has been hurting, but it's worth it because the Legacy tabletop role-playing game demo is coming shortly. I am cramming out pages of it every day, and I hope to have it done at this point by the end of the holiday season or in time for the holiday season. Free demo that'll be dropping on Twitter for anyone to play, to give me feedback if you want. It'll be a pay what you think it's worth kind of thing, but I don't mind if you take it for free, and just let me know what you thought of it. And that will be all I've got now, I guess, besides the games I'm playing on the weekend with you, my friend.
Good. That is a good segue. I'm at VA Redemption, obviously the host of this show, but I would be nothing without these three lovely gentlemen that I have with me here. They've made this show absolutely fantastic. I'm just the guy fiddling with the crap in the background. Again, shout out to every single one of these guys. At Gamers Ledge on Twitter, at AaronSXL on Twitter, and at The Last Omnitech. All fantastic and wonderful content creators. But me, I'll say just a little bit because I don't want to use my own show as a platform. I do voiceover work on my coffee. I also do writing work. I do a bunch of other stuff on my coffee too, but those are my two primary ones. I also stream, obviously. We're gonna streams on Wednesdays at the same exact time, 8 p.m. to probably about 9:30. Shorter streams. That's Chip Off the Block, where we go over stuff that we didn't get to in this episode. And obviously Writer's Block, where we have brand new guests every single week. And same exact time, 8 to 10 o'clock p.m. CST. And hopefully I'm going to be doing a show later this evening, or midnight for some people. It's going to be called World Breakers. Haven't made a promo for that, so if you're there, cool. If you're not, totally get it. I didn't advertise it. So, but yeah, I'm playing with Omni already shouted out DMDM. Derek, I'm running a game on Saturday. I'm running a Call of Cthulhu game. That'll be on at 2:30 p.m. CST. But yeah, I think that's all I got. I will shout out my significant other at Van Helsing Art on Twitter. She's an amazing artist. Commission her. It'll be the best Christmas present you can get your significant other or a friend or anybody. So, thank you guys. Any last parting words before we shut off for the night?
Yeah, you forgot to mention Harder House. It's done now.
Harder House has gone up in price, and I will never forgive them for it. They're unaffordable. That's a Midwestern American thing.
That is a total Midwestern inside joke thing. Sorry.
All I gotta say is, folks, we love you all. Thank you all for tuning in every single week. You make this worthwhile. This is week 2, and it has been an incredible blast to do all of this. You fuel this, your interest fuels this, and we are both, all of us, we are all honored with your interest. So thank you all. And please keep world building out there, folks. Let me see what you're making. I'm interested, personally.
Add us on
I'll
Twitter.
be myself off. Yeah, hell yeah, straight up.
Well, good night,
Be
folks.
excellent to each other.
Be excellent.
Be excellent
I should
to
have
each
worn my
other.
Bill and Ted t-shirt. Damn it. But again, good night, folks. I appreciate you joining us. I'll see you next week. Or tonight, maybe.
Care, folks.